What's going on today, guys? Hope you're doing well. Guess what? You, me, and everybody else in trucking could be on the forefront of getting a big pay raise. Now, how is that possible? Well, it goes back to a theme that I talked about in my last video, which is supply and demand, right? And there's not been a low supply of drivers over the last 5-10 years as compared to what the market is demanding for drivers. And as a result, pay has been not really keeping up at all, with certainly not inflation, certainly not the cost of living in general. So I came across this article and it is titled, "The Largest Capacity Purge in History is Coming." And this is from freightwaves.com. It's written by Craig Fuller, to give him credit. So in this article, they're basically talking about how, for those of you who don't know, the current head of the FMCSA has been cracking down on non-domiciled CDL holders. And why is that? And what is that? So basically, anyone who is a foreign national, meaning they are not a US citizen, can currently come here and get a license to drive a commercial truck, meaning a semi, and so long as they pass the test, they can have a license. Now, the stipulation that has been on the book for decades now, and it's not a new rule, is that they have to be proficient in English. The government has not actively enforced that rule up until recently, when they have decided to start cracking down on that after the Florida incident where a non-domiciled, non-English speaking driver did a U-turn in an unsafe way in the middle of a highway and killed 3 people as a result. And then there was also a recent crash in California where another non-domiciled CDL holder crashed into several people, and I think killed at least 3 people and injured several others. Now, for the one in California, I don't know if he could speak English or not. I'm not sure on the details, but as a result, the government has gotten a lot of pressure to start cracking down on non-domiciled CDL holders, especially if they cannot pass the English proficiency tests. And as far as the politics of it, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, because at the end of the day, regardless if it's Democrats or Republicans, here's the reality. No one's going to save you. No one's going to provide a good living for you. No one's going to provide a good retirement for you. That's on you to figure it out and do the research and do the work yourself. No one from the government is going to come and save you, or anywhere else from that matter. It's on you. That being said, I will take the very controversial stance of, if you are driving an 80,000-pound vehicle like a semi on our roads, which is a English-speaking country, you should probably know how to read and speak English. If you don't, that's a pretty obvious safety hazard, and I don't think I need to explain why that would be a safety hazard. Any truck driver who has been on the road in the last 5 years can tell you the driving quality, especially from other truck drivers, has gotten worse. And I think that's a large part in regards to people being allowed to get their CDLs, but they're not being held to the standard of being able to read and speak English properly. Outside of that, I don't really care. At the end of the day, they're just trying to make a living too, just like the rest of us. So I get it. I understand. However, if they're bad drivers and they can't read or speak English, they don't belong on the road, not with 80,000 pounds behind them. That's just my take and my opinion. If you could disagree with me, you can put it in the comment section down below. But continuing into the article, so they're describing it as, in this article, and I will post the article in the description of this video, but they're describing it as a capacity purge. So the anticipated great purge, quote unquote, of capacity stems from several converging factors, most notably recent changes in U.S. immigration policy and enforcement. According to research from J.B. Hunt, these policy changes, particularly regarding non-domiciled CDL or commercial driver's licenses and English language proficiency requirements, are expected to remove between 5 to 12% of all CDL holders meaning 214,000 to 437,000 drivers from the US supply over the next 2 to 3 years. So he's talking about the entire country. So over the next 2 or 3 years, they could remove 214 to 437,000 drivers, but it gets better. On September 26, 2025, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA, issued an emergency ruling that immediately restricts the issuances and renewal of non-domiciled CDLs. The FMCSA estimates that 97% of the current 200,000 non-domiciled holders will be unable to satisfy the new requirements, leading to their likely exit from the industry over the next 1 to 3 years. This represents approximately 5% of all registered CDLs in the United States. Concurrently, stricter enforcement of the English language proficiency regulations has resulted in over 23,000 violations, with more than 5,000 resulting in out-of-service orders. According to industry analyst Avery Weiss, this enforcement alone could remove approximately 20,000 drivers annually from the workforce. And here's the big part. When accounting for the overlap between drivers affected by non-domiciled CDL restrictions and English language proficiency enforcement, plus undocumented drivers and restrictions on new hires, the total at-risk population could exceed 600,000 drivers, representing about 17% of active drivers, according to transport economist Noel Perry. What does that mean for us as truckers? If that ends up happening, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, again, it's the government, so it's going to move glacially slow. But if they do end up removing 600,000 drivers from the driver pool, that is going to artificially lower the supply of drivers, meaning companies are going to have a higher demand for drivers. If that does happen, it is not going to be immediately backfilled by new drivers who do meet the requirements, right? If the positions get eliminated, it is going to be a catch-up of probably at least a couple years, if not a decade or even longer, before they could actually refill all of those 600,000 positions. He goes on in the article to discuss what that's going to do to freight rates and brokers and suppliers. I'm not going to get into that. You can read into that if you want. But if it does happen and we do have that major drop in supply of drivers, that is going to force the market to correct, in that to entice more people to get jobs, those carriers will have to raise the rate that they pay their drivers at. It also could mean sign-on bonuses are back on a regular rate. It could mean guaranteed pay raises across the board. It could mean a lot of things, but the general economics of this is that because there will be a artificially low supply of drivers, companies, if they want to have especially the best talent, not just any old driver, they will have to pay more in order to fill those positions. Okay? That's just how supply and demand works. And again, as a caveat, I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, probably won't. Even if they're wrong by a magnitude of 50% and they only cut out 300,000 drivers, that's still 8 or 9% of the total US drivers. So that will still end up in a actual shortage of drivers. That will again require companies to pay more in order to incentivize people to get into this field and refill those positions. If they don't, this position's going to sit empty and they're going to lose out on the freight to people who actually are paying more or at least being competitive in the new market. So I'd be really curious to see how this ends up panning out over the next couple of years. Again, it could mean good things for us who are actively trucking. And it is also good news for those of you who are looking into trucking but have not pulled the trigger yet or haven't decided on what you're going to do within trucking. This means that there are going to be good opportunity. If this does happen, this means that there are going to be good opportunities for tons of new drivers. If you guys disagree with me, or if you guys disagree with anything that I read in the article, or if you have any specific thoughts about it, put it in the comments section down below. I'd be curious to see what you guys think. And if you found this video helpful and you want to see more, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. God bless.